Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm host Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris and some comments she made regarding the Declaration of Independence and what she particularly omitted while she was talking about abortion. So you guys can probably guess what she omitted when she talked about the Declaration of Independence and also some other things that she said. Also, Snowden gave a funny remark in regards to Joe Biden and his whole scandal with the classified documents, and I want to go ahead and share it with you guys. And it's really crazy how the story just evolved from Trump and the raid, and now Biden finding documents everywhere, and not just as vice president, but also when he was a senator, and people sticking up for him. And also developing news, Mike Pence also self-reported that he also had some classified documents. So at this point in time, it seems like this is something that happens more often than people gave credit for. And there have been people who've been prosecuted for mishandling classified information that probably feel like, bro, there's different rules for you guys versus different rules for people like us, which I suppose we sadly know that to be the case. Anyway, we'll get into that when we get into that. Also, we'll be talking about Students for Life Summit that I went to. I'll have a ton of footage and stuff to talk about. I have it scheduled to really dive into a lot of the stuff that happened this past weekend next week. So I'm going to honor that, but I just want to talk about this particular thing since it's relevant news. And the straw poll that they had there. So the students there, or it wasn't just students, people could vote if they weren't like students, but if you were attended the summit, you could vote the straw poll. And people picked Ron DeSantis over Trump, and it was by a lot. And so I think a lot of people are saying, oh, it's no surprise because of the comments that he made. And I was actually there on the ground, and I interviewed and talked to people. So I want to give my 2 cents on what were people's feelings. And going forward, can Trump win these people back, and what's his attitude, and where do we really go from here? So before I jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blackteennews.com, check out different content on my website, different videos, different articles, etc. I did already write an article about the situation with the straw poll. I also dropped one yesterday about the M&Ms, if you guys saw that. They're no longer using spokes candies. They're going to use Maya Rudolph, who was an actress in Bridesmaids and SNL. Like, usually she'll play like Kamala or something. I just think that they should sell candy, and if they tried to not get into politics, I guess, and they could just sell candy. But I don't know if having a person as opposed to just having mascots that people are accustomed to is going to give them less problems. So they basically canceled their own mascots, which is pretty incredible. But I guess it's not the first time. Obviously not the first time that companies have decided to do this. But anyway, that's another article that you guys read at blackteennews.com. Check out different content that we have. Also check out different merch that we have, like the pro-choice men are sus. Love that one. The Constitution's glorious liberty document. Also, we got the black tea mug, so you guys can get all kinds of goodies. That does help out. Also, if you would like to support blackteennews.com, go to blackteennews.com/donate to help support. Very much appreciate anyone who can help with the overhead. It costs to stream, costs to run my website, costs to travel. So I appreciate everyone who has been willing to help, who has helped. And I appreciate every like, every follow, every, hey, check out this girl. Like, it really does help, and God bless you all. I do want to give a particular shout out to everyone who did support me as I went to the March for Life, and I ended up staying for the Students for Life Summit. So I got a lot of great footage, interviewed quite a quite a lot of people, and there's some footage that I really am anxious and want to show you guys that I think will be great. I'm not gonna wait till next week to start like rolling stuff out. There'll be stuff like out tomorrow, but I'll continue to show that over the course of next week as well, just because that's the week when I said I'm gonna make sure that I get all my sponsors, all these shout outs for the rest of that particular week. But I did have gold sponsors in the Bride Mission Pack, Michigan Conservative Coalition, and Plymouth Right to Life. So I thank everybody, and everybody will get their particular, shout outs where they're deemed appropriate, like on the website and different posts and whatever. But I do want to give a special shout out to those folks who were gold sponsors. So thank you. It did, take pressure off my mind as far as having, some backing there to be able to travel and stay in DC, which I feel is kind of too expensive for what you get out of the city. Like I know a lot of people go there and they travel and go to the museums and see all the stuff, but I'm just not impressed personally. And maybe it's because my sister lived there, and I don't know, it just I didn't seem like you couldn't, there was nowhere that I really liked to eat. Like other places have better places to eat and to go and hang out, and the parking is just horrendous. But anyway, thank you guys for taking a load off my mind as far as that trip, and God bless you. So before we jump into everything, you guys, well, actually, I guess we are just kind of jumping into it. You guys know that I like to start with something humorous. So Snowden went ahead and posted, well, let me show you the video first from the press secretary responding to Joe Biden's classified documents scandal, which we found in multiple locations, keep finding new batches of information going back to the time when he was a senator. So stuff like, it's bad enough that they found stuff that was classified when he was vice president, because you're talking, obviously, he's been president for 2 years. Trump was the president for 4. So that going back at least 6 years. But now you're talking about stuff that happened that he's had for maybe a decade or decades. So it's amazing how much ferocity these people came for Trump, to the point where they raided Mar-a-Lago and got the stuff, which gave him, I think, a big boost because when people attack Trump, even if people who might have been like annoyed and dropping off from Trump, they feel very defensive of him, to the point where like people are like, I don't even like this guy, but let me defend him. And then people who may be on the fence are like, they're attacking this guy because they think he's a threat. So I do think it gave him like a bit of a boost. From what I heard, it pushed him really into wanting to run again, because I don't know, because revenge, whatever. But I heard, I thought he was definitely going to do it. Then I heard he was on the fence, and that like made him say, I'm going to do this. So if people just really if people legitimately wanted to be rid of Trump, they could just leave Trump alone. They could not talk about him. They could just, let him go off into the sunset and play golf, etc. But that's clearly not what the left wants to do. And he defied them. He defied the system. And so they continuously want to punish him. So that just makes people who supported Trump feel more loyal to him. Now, there are people who have peeled off because they ultimately don't, because they want to win. So, and they feel like maybe he's too big of a liability. But again, if they wanted him to just like not be a thing, they could have easily ignored him. By the way, I don't think that they want him to not be a thing. As much as they claim how dangerous he is, he gives them too much. He annoys them, don't get me wrong, but he offers them power in their own way, especially because he empowers their base, and people are excited to go out and vote against Trump. So and then there's so many grifters who have built brands around attacking Trump, like the Lincoln Project. And then there's people who have on the right who have made their whole careers basically writing sort of the coattails of the Trump train. So there's just a lot riding on Trump, and so many people might be annoyed with him, but don't really want him to go away. But they nevertheless went after him, was acting like he was selling all these secrets because he had the documents, when the truth is he just probably had the documents and felt they were and he was the president. He can declassify stuff, and so he's going back and forth with the archives. He says he was cooperating. He seemed to be cooperating, but I just knowing the man, knowing of the man, I don't know him personally. He probably was like dragging his feet. It wasn't always cooperative. They raided him, and there was all these stories like he was about to sell the nuclear codes to Russia. Just so much exaggeration. Now, Joe Biden, after the midterms, there's all these stories about Joe Biden having these classified documents in different places, including in his garage. He's like, well, it's not on the street. It's in the garage with the Corvette. In this house where his son allegedly was renting, according to some documents. I don't know if I think it could just kind of seem like it was a kickback thing, but I'm like, okay, well, your crackhead son has access to these classified documents. So there's a lot of sketchy stuff going on. And as they continue to find stuff, the press secretary is just really not equipped, which she hasn't been equipped at all, period. But it doesn't seem like she's very equipped to handle this particular scandal. And I wonder how Joe Biden is just going to get through it. But anyway, here's a clip of her talking about it, and then I want to show you Snowden's response.
As the president said, he takes classified information and materials seriously. And as we have said, we have cooperated from the moment we informed the archives that a small number of documents were found, and we will continue to cooperate. We have cooperated closely with the Justice Department throughout its review, and we will continue that cooperation with the special counsel. We are confident that a thorough review will show that these documents were inadvertently misplaced, and the president and his lawyers acted promptly upon discovering of this mistake.
So again, that's a long time to have that mistake just hanging out there, especially knowing that how people were coming hard for Trump, which it's not like Joe Biden remained silent. He thought it was, it was immoral, terrible for Trump to have those classified documents. So Edward Snowden was like, man, I should have thought of that one. Saying, oh, it was just misplaced. It's such a bad excuse. And they kept saying Joe Biden cares about classified documents. He handles them seriously. He thinks it's a serious matter. But so you can't just say, well, an investigation will just prove that, we just misplaced it in all these places. Now, there was a story today that's breaking about Mike Pence also found some classified documents, and he decided to self-report. And I think that kind of lets you know that maybe this happens more often than not, especially since Joe Biden had some from his time in the Senate, and the way that people are, coming to his aid with the narrative. So it just kind of lets you know that the way that reacted to Trump, who, by the way, was the president of the United States, was just so theatrical, which we knew that, but it just takes it to another degree. Now, some people are dunking on Mike Pence for being such a good old boy and reporting himself. But at this point, I guess like he does have aspirations to being the president himself. And I guess people could find that out eventually, so why not come out with it? But Jack Posobiec said he's been dunking on him a few times, but he said Pence self-reported classified because in his mind he is a self-righteous Saint Pence who must ennoble himself at all costs. Later tonight he will flagellating like this when you I guess hit yourself in his punishment closet. And then this guy replied under him. His @ symbol is it is on Twitter, EMPDL. So Mike Pence is the guy in the I'm so embarrassed by laughing at this, but I laughed out loud, so I'm gonna share it. Mike Pence is the guy in the elevator who smiles at you and admits he dropped a silent and deadly. I'm so sorry for laughing at that. I laughed at that. I guess I made a noise. My sister ran in my room. She's like, "What's wrong? Something happened." I'm like, and I was like, "Oh," I guess I said, "Oh no," out loud. and so she thought I fell, or well, maybe not fell, because you would have been able to hear the ground shake. But she just thought something was wrong, so she came in my room, and I just told her the joke, which she thought was funny too. Yeah, I think it's probably in his best interest, if he wants to run, to just go ahead and report. But again, I think this kind of just shows that this is a bigger problem than people gave credit for. I'll have to go back and see if he had much comment on Trump's classified documents, because a lot of people are commenting. So we know that Biden was a hypocrite with it. I have to go back and look and see if Pence made some comments on it, but just wanted to share that story as it's continued to develop. I don't know if people are going to use this as a thing to push Biden aside. Again, I've been saying this, and I think a lot of people note the Democrats do not have a good bench. So to get rid of Biden is a big risk. Kamala is not good. Pete Buttigieg can't even do like his job very well as a transportation secretary. You just don't have a good bench in them. I thought Mayor Adams in New York, frankly, because he's a mayor in New York and black, that's something I think that the lefties would push. But he does things that are so polarizing. He's not really, in my opinion, playing playing it smart at all. Maybe if you're a big leftist, you'll still go ahead and support him. But as far as like making some kind of future aspirations that could win the Midwest or something, I don't see that happening. And I mean, obviously, he still has time in his term to turn things around, but in my opinion, he's not playing it smart. So I just don't see someone else coming in and making a compelling case to be president on the Democrat side. I think the most popular person that they could put up on the bench would be Michelle Obama. Not that I think that she would be good or in general or qualified in the least to do the job. And I don't frankly see why she would want to. They're making that Netflix money doing, kind of making big cultural sort of impacts behind the scene, getting a lot of money. And I kind of wanted and suspected for Trump to make bigger cultural impacts behind the scenes. I mean, he started Truth Social, but it's not really crossing over. It gets good traffic for people who are on it and high engagement for people who are on it, from what I know. But as far as crossing over or highly advancing the world of conservatism, it's not doing that. And I was kind of hoping that was a sphere that Trump would kind of move in. But he's going to go ahead and run again. And I don't think they will run Michelle unless they're pretty confident that she will have a slam dunk, because I just can't see Obama being okay with his wife losing. I mean, no one wants to lose, but I can't, unless they like for sure know that it's going to be a thing. I don't think they'll even bother risking it. So I don't know. They might be stuck with Joe Biden. We'll see how this continues to progress. Anyway, let's move on. As you guys know, this past weekend I was at the March for Life. My sister Tina went with me, so that's a picture of us in the march. We were pretty far back, but which that was fine, because I needed to record and talk to people and interview people, and I couldn't do that while I was really close to the stage because you pick up too much sound. But we had a great time. Our legs were tired for sure, but we had a really good time. And I was very grateful that she went with me. And also that next day we went to the Students for Life Summit. So that's we were kind of in the back and on the side by the time we got in the room. So that's Seth Dillon there. So they did a straw poll. So as soon as we came in, we missed like the morning stuff when Allie Stuckley was there from the Blaze. We missed her speech. We slept in a little bit. And when we got there, we started like going around the vendors room, talking to people. But they let us know like, hey, we're doing a straw poll. So I was very interested in the straw poll and the results of the straw poll. So I noticed the day before at the march, there was some Trump gear, but not like in the past where you would see Trump gear. Like there were some flags, of Make America Great Again, or I don't know if I saw Let's Go Brandon. Maybe I did, but there's some Trump hats here and there, but was it to the degree that I have seen in the past, or I think even like last year when I went? No, I can't say that it was, but at the Students for Life Summit, I don't think there was really that presence there at all. Unlike like Ron DeSantis, though, I don't think this was anyone like from his team or anything, but there was a group called Ready for Ron. And so they had a petition going to try to get him to run. Now, I didn't, they asked me to sign it. I'm just like, you guys are collecting info. Like, you don't need my info. I'm like, these people are going to, you're not going to sign a petition to make people run. There could be like, hey, we use this as information for fundraiser folks. Like, hey, there's all this excitement, or there could be, or just email data collection and stuff. No one's going to go up to Ron DeSantis and say, hey, all these kids really want you to run. Will you run for president? People factor in all sorts of other things. He probably already knows whether or not he's going to run, and he'll probably announce it in the next few months. People don't normally announce as early as Trump did. So we'll probably find out around May or something whether DeSantis is going to jump in the race. So I was just like, nah, I'm good. But I was observing the room and listening to people when I talked to him and etc. So I started going around the room and asking people who they're voting for in the straw poll. And I didn't talk to anyone who was going to support Trump, not because I meant to. Obviously, how would I know until I talked to them? But I just didn't end up finding anyone. So the results were DeSantis 54% and Trump had 19%. So someone was in there voting for him, but I just didn't get to him. And I'm not really surprised. Now, the people who I talked to, it wasn't so people are speculating because of Trump's comment. And I don't think I have it queued up still. But Trump, no, I don't think I have it queued up anymore. But Trump had made a comment saying, hey, it wasn't my fault that we lost the midterms. My record was like 200 and something to 20, which he's including incumbents who he did not need to push across the finish line. And he said that pro-lifers or whatever, especially like those who had no exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother, are the reason that we lost. And then you had all these Republicans who wanted Roe v. Wade overturned and then just disappeared after they got what they wanted. Now, this was very offensive to a lot of people. You had Lila Rose who called it, cowardly. She's from Live Action. Kristen Hawkins, who is the president, or at least she's in charge of the Students for Life. She penned an op-ed about it. And there were some people in the pro-life people, not like major folks, but just maybe some people online who thought that maybe he had some points. But people within who are pretty big in the movement disagreed and said, no, bad strategies are the reason why Republicans lost. And then there's people who, like Texas, you had a whole big, abortion legislation. It didn't push Beto across the finish line, So people who were pro-life still won, but there were places where it did absolutely have an effect on the ballot, like in Michigan, which I've talked about quite a few times. But the people with the no exceptions, which the pro-life legislation that's pushed and the pro-life organizations, everyone believes in exceptions for life of the mother. I'm not aware of any candidates who weren't for the life of the mother. And if they say no exceptions, meaning not life of the mother, they don't mean that they literally think the woman should die. It's kind of a semantic sort of argument, because they'll say you don't need to purposely have an abortion to kill it. You set out to purposely kill a child to save a woman. Like they'll say you if you induce the labor or something, the baby might die. But that's in order. But if you're in that sort of situations to save one life over another, they don't consider that to be the same thing. Um, so I think it's just best, just frankly, to just go ahead and say life of the mother. I don't think it's worth. You can still continue to have that conversation, but I don't think it's. I think it's you could. It's fair to just to go ahead and just grant that exception because it's not going to be something that really happens anyway. Um, and you don't ethically think it's the same thing either. So I think it's a thing not worth arguing about. Though I did hear of candidates who um, made that case, but I'm just trying to explain what their thinking is. Their thinking isn't that the baby is so much more important than the woman. And I'm not saying that there's not people who think that, but that's not really the heart of the pro-life community. I just want to make that clear. But in Michigan, he had his hands very heavy in our primary, and the people on the ballot were people that he selected. And from my knowledge, they all believed in no exceptions for rape and incest. So I didn't like Trump's comment, and I'm gonna dive deeper into it. Really, I've talked about it before, but I won't have some more content that I want to really sort of drive in talking about that point. But people didn't like his statement, but that's not why they decided to not support him, at least in this poll, from what I gathered from folks. So even though they didn't like it, it's really about people not feeling that he's very electable, and they don't think that. I don't know if they don't think that he can get across the finish line. At the end of the day, they're going to support him. They're going to support a pro-life candidate. But as far as the primary, they want to support someone who they think will win or can win or have a better chance of winning. And people are beginning to believe that that's Ron DeSantis. So, excuse me. I don't. If you agree with that or disagree, that's your opinion. We'll have to hash that out going forward, and Trump will have to make the case. And if Ron decides to win, he could very well not run. And I think at the end of the day, I think Ron should run in the primary because if he doesn't shoot his shot now, he could really miss his moment. If he really has any aspirations for it, he has a ton of money in the bank. He's coming off this great win. A lot of people really like how he legislates, and he's polling right now very well with independents. Now, people are saying, well, they're just going to ream on him like they reamed on Trump, so people don't think Trump is electable. They'll do the same thing to DeSantis. And I totally understand. I totally get that. I totally agree with that. They're totally going to. I've already seen commentary that DeSantis is worse than Trump. I've already seen it from multiple sources in the mainstream media. So that is their goal. That is what they will talk about. And that's the route that they will go. But at the same time, they also have already been reaming him throughout the pandemic. He was the governor who they bashed. They're calling him Death Santis, if you recall, while they were holding up Cuomo. And in the end, DeSantis was the one who, acted appropriately, and Cuomo had to resign in disgrace. So for multiple reasons, but I think the sexual scandal was to, not that I'm saying that's not enough to have pushed him out, but I really think that was a reason they decided to push him out when they really didn't want some of his nursing home scandal to keep being in the news, especially when there were other governors like Gretchen Whitmer who did the same thing. So I think they politically they had to do it. So they really went after DeSantis already. They really went after him with the Don't Say Gay bill, the Parental Rights and Education bill. So there was all that propaganda surrounding that, which, by the way, there's a new propaganda surrounding Ron DeSantis and education in Florida. They're saying that he's trying to block African-American studies when it involves like critical race theory stuff and queer theory and all kinds of different stuff. So we'll get into that deeper at a later time, but they will continue to harp on this man because they already have a narrative prepared that he is worse than Trump. So even if he beats Trump in the primary, he will be worse than Orange Hitler. Okay, so nobody's going to treat him nice just because he's not Trump. But there will be plenty of people who will still recognize that he's not Trump, but the media are not going to do Ron DeSantis any favors. They're going to push and want Joe Biden back in the White House or whatever Democrat that they're going to push in the primary. So as far as electability, again, people have their own opinions. Someone's in the comments, they love both. And I think there's reasons to, well, age is one thing, just to be frank. There's plenty of reasons to prefer DeSantis. There's some proven things with Trump that when I have discussions with people, they're like, well, I know how Trump is going to be with foreign policy. And there's a guy from my church. He's like, I know how Trump's going to be with foreign policy. I don't know how DeSantis is going to be, but I know how Trump is. And they're like, at the end of the day, I think that's going to be more important for the president. So I'm like, I totally get that. So we see how Ron DeSantis governed the Florida, and we're like, well, we like some of that stuff, but he does have the advantage right now of Florida being a red state. So how is he going to govern with on a bigger sort of scale with maybe who knows, they could have opposing, houses, but I don't know, the Senate is going to be hard for the Democrats, I think, to maintain. So you might have a Republican president and House and Senate in 2024. Well, I guess it'll be 2025 coming into that season. There's questions, and I get it. But I think those things you have to hash out in a primary. And some people feel like Trump just automatically deserves it. I feel like he deserved a second term, and I very much support him in that second term. But he's not an incumbent, and let the man fight. Let them, duke it out, because he's gonna have to duke it out against someone else. So you don't want these people just like resting on their laurels when they got big battles. And he's been fighting battles the whole time, but primaries get you ready for what's next. So I also don't want to anoint people. People didn't like when the Clintons and the Bushes, when we were just anointing people. Now this is like the same person, but and loyalty to having the same person coming back in. But I just let them make their case and people decide. That's how I feel. I feel like primary good will be good. I think there's a chance that DeSantis might not run if he really thinks that he could win and Trump would just tank it anyway. I would like to think Trump would not do that and run third party. I also don't know if he'd be willing to invest that much of his own money in that run. But he's teased it. So I wish I knew for certain that he wouldn't do that. I can't say that I do know for sure. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. But the Students for Life decided to pick DeSantis, which Kristen, told the whole stage the results when the Rolling Stone wrote about it. And she said, well, I'm gonna have to call DeSantis because they have like a 15-week ban now. And the room overwhelmingly voted, where the summit voted, they want life protected at conception. So DeSantis signaled that he'd be willing to do an earlier bill. I think you got to pass things that can pass. So I think as activists and commentators and voters and people who are involved and engaged, we do have to do our work on the ground and continue to talk to people and to educate them about what abortion is, talk about there's so many people who don't even understand the science. I saw this crazy TikTok today. That was like, it's Catholic propaganda that the heartbeat is beating, before it's fully formed or something really crazy stuff like that. And I'm like, y'all want free college, but y'all just needed to pay attention in regular high school. Like, because you didn't do it. You didn't do it. So why should people pay for college when y'all out here just dumb as bricks? It was pretty wild. It's Secular Pro-Life actually replied to the video. If you're on TikTok, they might have posted on their Facebook. It was just wild how much misinformation there was. And before I came on, I was debating someone on a comment on one of my videos. And it was about racism and people saying that white people were like just racist. And they're particularly racist because they won't acknowledge that they haven't been discriminated against. And so I replied to them like, that's dumb. And I gave my reasons. And I said, anyone can dehumanize someone, whether you talk about slavery or you talk about today with abortion. So someone left a comment like, abortion is not racist. And I didn't know what they're talking about. So I had to go back and rewatch my video because I didn't think I had said that. And I didn't say that. And I can make that case, or at least people say systemic racism. I'm like, there's no like better example than Planned Parenthood. There's this eugenics history, and there's this disparate impact today. Disproportionate amount of babies killed are Black. So I mean, you can, when you use systemic racism, it has such a catch-all sort of definition. It doesn't make sense to not use it against them and say, hey, Planned Parenthood abortion if it's this definition, especially when people go around saying we need abortion for women of color. Like, what do you think abortion is? It's women killing their children. So you're advocating not so much to help these women, but to kill their babies because you think that will help them and help society. I don't know. I think that's pretty messed up. So I started to explain, like, no, I didn't say it was racist, but I said you choose to discriminate against someone. So we know it's human. And then they try to come back and say, no, it's just cells. And I wasn't a person until I came out of my mother. And I'm like, there is nothing so magical about your mother's kuka that it just made you a person when you exited. That is ridiculous. So, and then they called it a parasite. And I'm like, no, it doesn't fit the definition of a parasite, and started to explain there. They kept moving the goalpost and then moved into some philosophy. I didn't have the patience to go on forever with them because I just ended it with, you have some really bad arguments. And a lot of the stuff that they're going is stuff that I've made videos about, a ton of videos on TikTok about. So, but my point is that we do have to engage and have these conversations because so many people believe misinformation on this topic, and we do have to change hearts and minds. And I think one of those ways is keep comparing it to the heinous actions during the slave trade and how they would dehumanize people over and over again. Students for Life did interview me, and I totally brought that up. And I hope they play it somewhere. I don't know if they'll use it, but they're like, oh, that's really good. You did a really good job. So I hope that message can pretty much get shared. People hate the comparison, but like the more they talked, I'm just like, this particular commenter, I'm like, you sound just like them. Especially look up the Zong case. Look up the Zong case when there was a slave ship that had all these, well, they over like stuffed their boat, and they ran into rough seas. So they threw the slaves overboard, hoping that the insurance company would just cover their losses. And so the insurance company was like, no, we're not doing that. So it was a big court case in the UK. And it started the movement helping toward, ending slavery. It was a big sort of moment. And so even though the insurance companies won, they're like, okay, well, let's try to prosecute the people who actually threw slaves overboard. And the actual magistrate or somebody was like, to say that they killed men or or this was murder, like these upstanding citizens, like you can't say that. That's no different than throwing over driftwood. Like, we're talking about human beings, and that's, you probably are hearing that and like, that's so revolting. But you know what? It wasn't so revolting back then to those people because they were just conditioned and accustomed to think that way about other human beings. So people get really offended when you compare the two. I think you should be offended. But then I think you should stop and question if it's true and I have a valid point. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about Kamala Harris and her comments. Now they made a big fuss, about the anniversary of Roe, or what should have been the anniversary of Roe. So Biden tweeted out some garbage stuff, but Kamala Harris, she's a VP and she's a woman, so she had some comments. And so I want to start with the how dare they, and then I will go into the Declaration of Independence thing.
Even then, people live in fear of what might be next, because Republicans in Congress are now calling for a nationwide abortion ban. Some even from the moment of conception. The right of every woman in every state in this country to make decisions about her own body is on the line. And I've said it before and I will say it again. How dare they? How dare they?
How dare you? Obvious things, women making decisions about their bodies that can happen prior to pregnancy. You can decide to be abstinent, very easy way to not get pregnant, unless a crime happens to you. But yeah, guarantee that works. So there's that choice. You can choose birth control. Very effective. A lot of these women out here who are, still getting pregnant, a lot of them aren't using birth control. They bring it up like, what if birth control fails? Birth control is very effective. You could also have your man wear a condom. And there's a lot of women out here who are letting these men, go into them without any protection. I did interview someone who it got stuck or something. And and it was like her first time, and she ended up getting pregnant. I wouldn't even say that was her boyfriend. But he set up the abortion appointment. And so her mom was like, just knew something was wrong. And so she questioned, she's like, you're pregnant, aren't you? And she started crying, and her mom, she's like, it's okay. And so she tried to cancel the appointment. And the abortion clinic, I don't know if it was a Planned Parenthood, but the abortion clinic was like, no, you have to come in to cancel your appointment. And why why would you have to go inside to cancel your abortion appointment? Like, what's going to happen if you're 5 minutes late? Is someone going to teleport into your room and then hold you down and make you have the abortion? It's so ridiculous. They're like, no, you have to come in. But they tell you that, I guess, to make you just make you go through with it, I guess, so they can convince you. So she ended up going, and I think she ended up going just to like see what they would say. And so at that point in time, she knew that her baby could feel or had a heartbeat and stuff. I don't know if they could feel, but she knew they had a heartbeat. So she started asking them questions, just probing them to see what they say. And they lied. So these people do some dubious stuff to get you to abort. But anyway, accidents can happen. Well, that wasn't an accident. They did have sex. Accident as in you had a unplanned pregnancy, which isn't the end of the world. My mom wanted like 2 kids. She had 7. My dad said nothing would stop us. So yeah, just because you are unwanted originally doesn't mean that you won't be wanted and cared for and loved. So just let life happen, give life a chance. But you have options before you do the naked tango, right? You have options. But once there's another person inside of you, bodily autonomy, it's not the same thing. Bodily autonomy is you making decisions about your life, your future, and your body. It is not you, deciding to end someone else's life via lethal injection or dismemberment or suffocating / starving them and then expelling them from your body. Like that's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. And our bodily autonomy is not absolute. I can't exercise my bodily autonomy and just choke you out. I can't do that. I would be charged for assault, I don't know, attempted murder, depending on the results. You can't just use your bodily autonomy to actively kill someone. So Equal Rights Institute does such a great job talking about abortion, and in a lot of ways other people don't really engage. So they're just upfront, like, abortion is a human rights. There's a conflict. So there's the woman and her body autonomy, but there's also this other human being. So they see it as a conflict of rights. But the question is, who should win out in that regard? And so they lay a good case that you shouldn't kill the baby. They have a right to life, which is a right to not be killed. So bodily autonomy is not absolute, which we know Kamala Harris and all these people know that because they were treating people like garbage during COVID with the masks and the lockdowns and the mandates and the vaccine passports and all that stuff. People did not respect bodily autonomy. And it's pretty laughable that people try to pretend like they do, like they have any integrity. It's very rare when I'm debating someone about abortion and they were also like against vaccine mandates. You can find that. I saw someone on the live the other day, but even if they're against that, I did not see a lot of like lefties who are pro-choice, like saying, oh, I'm against mandates or something. So it wasn't just people didn't bring the same sort of fire that they're like, they bring to abortion. They just don't. So the whole bodily autonomy, your body, your choice, they don't mean that. The government also doesn't mean that. Do they not make your son sign up for selective service when they turn 18? As a matter of fact, Selective Service had a tweet and they said, if you have a son, one son, your only son, remember, they still have to sign up for Selective Service. And that's the draft, which, by the way, our numbers right now are really low. Like, they're having trouble recruiting. Maybe it's just because we're not like wartime and because the stuff is woke and because, I don't know, people don't really like the president, whatever reasons, we're having low recruitment. So we haven't had a draft or needed to have a draft in a long time because we have people who normally volunteer and go out to go fight. That does not mean that we will never have a draft again. They still make you register. So, and that's them potentially being drafted and then having to potentially die for their country. So we don't totally believe in free bodily autonomy. There are limits, and the government sure doesn't respect you. Let's just be frank. So Kamala Harris, the my body, my choice, the narrative just isn't true. So let's listen to what she said about the Declaration of Independence, because I'm pretty sure you guys are going to notice that she left something very, very, very important out.
We collectively believe and know America is a promise. America is a promise. It is a promise of freedom and liberty. Not for some, but for all. A promise we made in the Declaration of Independence, that we are each endowed with the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Be clear, these rights were not bestowed upon us. They belong to us as Americans.
So, the fact that she left out life is very telling. It's life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. It's before the other two. You can't have other rights unless you have a right to life. You got to live to have your rights. If you don't have a right to not be violently killed, if you don't have that, that's what the right to life is, a right to not be killed. You don't have a right to not die. No one can promise you that. We're all going to die someday. But the right to not be killed, we at least have that. And that doesn't guarantee someone won't kill you, but there needs, the reason why we have governments, and that's what the Declaration of Independence says, is to ensure these unalienable rights. And what the first one is life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And it's also pursuit because no one can guarantee you happiness. But you got to start with life. Now, if you don't actually have a right to life and it's granted based on whether or not your mother wants you, then that means your rights are bestowed upon you by another person. Or we'll say the government, I guess really, right, the government is allowing it to be based on the whims of the mother. So if that is the case and you don't have an inalienable right endowed by our creator, where you don't have to believe it was a creator, but just from the point of our existence, just we come into being with these rights. If you don't believe that's the case, then you don't believe in natural rights. You believe that we're all granted rights. So she's wrong about the bestowed. She's also wrong that it's bestowed upon us as Americans. Because I'm pretty sure that in any other context, if she mentioned life, that she would still want those rights bestowed upon migrants. You can't just go out and kill migrants. You can't just do that. You can't just take away people's liberties because they're not Americans. I mean, you get different privileges because you're Americans, but like citizenship, et cetera. But you can't just go out and kill people and there be no repercussions because they're not American. So it's very, very telling. So they wanted to use this, but they knew that they had to omit that. And I don't know that her speechwriter knew that they had to omit that, or if she's looking at a teleprompter, she's like, we can't have that in there. Or if she was, if it was on the teleprompter and she just skipped over it, I don't know. But that's a really big, obvious thing that she missed for obvious reasons. So now they're just trying to pretend like there is no right to life. Not even like selectively for people. Like we're just going to scratch that out like it doesn't exist because that fits your narrative. That's really sketchy, guys. Someone said she's an idiot. Does she seem sloshed to you guys? That is like slang for like drunk, right? Sloshed. She always sounds a little drunk to me. Maybe she is, I don't know, but I just don't get future of the Democrat Party from Kamala. Like people liked her in doses, which I never liked. She's my least favorite out of their whole entire bench in 2020. But in doses, when she's like interrogating you, like during a Senate, confirmation hearing or something like that, maybe that's one thing. But there's a reason why Kamala Harris has not been popping up a lot of places, and her speeches are so dumb. Seth Dillon said at the summit that people think that it's so much easier for him to write comedy because there's so much crazy stuff going on. He's like, how am I supposed to compete with a Kamala Harris speech? He's like, I can't write something funnier than that. And we all, laughed. He's like, it can't be done. And I get that, especially if she's talking about the passage of time and the passage of time and the passage of time. And she just doesn't come off very wise. And that's, I don't know, unfortunate. You see professional women and you hope that, I don't know, maybe they can do well. And then they get to these high positions and everyone's like, oh, we got to celebrate her because she's the first. And I'm like, but I'm not proud of her. Even as someone across on the other side of the aisle, I can respect people who are, who think differently than me, who have different views, but I'm not impressed with her. I'm not saying what she didn't accomplish isn't impressive, but I also know that she was Biden's diversity hire. So, and I'm not going to be impressed or feel, I don't know, special because she's there in a position I don't think she deserves and isn't worthy of. But I get other people who were inspired seeing her, sworn in. I guess I get that. And then that inspires some people to be like, oh, she did it, I can do it too. Please don't do things the way Kamala Harris did. Don't do that. Think more of yourself than that. But I get people saying like, oh, there's a woman of color doing this. Oh, there's a woman who's able to accomplish this. I understand that, but I already mentioned this sometime last week that I just wasn't raised with that sort of worldview that I needed to see someone else, the same gender, the same race, or something to accomplish something else. Like my parents, and I said particularly my dad, but I mean, both parents instilled confidence and other stuff in us, but my dad just drilled it into us like, you can achieve this because of who you are, particularly because we're bars. It's like we have the saying like bars can do everything. Um, um, and he had pride in us because we were his children, and he believed that we could accomplish anything that we set our minds to. So I never felt like I needed someone to be first to show me the way. I can pave my own. I can believe in myself because of who I am, and as a daughter of Christ and all that stuff. But not that I'm not still inspired by other people and hearing their stories, but I don't have to say, oh, a woman did this, therefore I can do this because I'm also a woman. I don't need to do that. I think people's individual stories and their triumphs and their testimonies are far more inspiring and encouraging than their gender or their race. And especially today, like 1800s or something like that, totally, I think that's different. I think that's different. But Kamala Harris, she's the VP because Biden annoyed so many people with his history and racist comments and policies that disproportionately impacted, communities of color. And he said the "you ain't black" comment on the campaign trail. He said the comment about, oh, unlike the African American, Latinos have diverse thoughts. I'm like, whoa, they're racist. Because there was comments like that, people felt it was necessary for Joe Biden to pick a woman of color. So there was a letter by Charlemagne and other people that they put out and they signed that said you need to pick a woman of color. And so he was already going to pick a woman. So he went ahead and he picked Kamala after Kamala called him like a racist, a clue. Well, I don't know if she called him a racist, but she definitely accused him of purposely keeping her from integrating into schools. So that's a heck of a thing to get over and say, yeah, will you be my VP? Yeah. So Kamala's just the worst. She's just the worst. But I don't. So someone left a comment on Twitter, and they said you can tell these people who are debating abortion have not really had to defend their position for a very long time, especially these politicians, because they've been able to hide behind Roe and just going on and omitting life from the Declaration of Independence, or going with the "my body, my choice," knowing that we lived through 2020, 2021, and 2022. It just doesn't track, and they're going to have to come up with something more persuasive. Now, the persuasive thing that people are doing is just misinformation and lying, and including ectopic pregnancies in abortion, including miscarriages in abortion, and really like saying, oh, it's not really a heartbeat, and oh, see this exploded tissue in a petri dish, this is what a baby looks like at 9 weeks. It's like, no, you can see what a baby looks like at 9 weeks. It's definitely not exploded tissue. Like, how to get in the petri dish? How to get there? Did you suck it through something to get it in the dish? Because it kind of seems like that's what happened. And even I'm talking about a specific circumstance of propaganda that flooded TikTok and other places, Instagram, and even pro-choice people are like, I had a miscarriage. I know what a baby looks at 9 weeks. You can see it. So we have to find a way to push through the misinformation that people are pushing right now. When I was at the Lifer March, I went live on TikTok, and people started to, once I got to more than 100 viewers, which, by the way, people were saying awful things to me during the live, including like, no man would ever impregnate you and other stuff about me. I've had terrible stuff that pro-choice people have said to me. But I was just, engaging with comments as they came in, talking about the march, talking about pro-life issues, responding to different comments that people were making. And eventually they reported my video, my live, for misinformation. And so I appealed it to TikTok and they said, oh, well, no, we rated it's misinformation. I'm like, how is nothing I said was misinformation? And did you even look at it? But I do feel like that is the move that they're going to really make to any sort of biological stuff regarding embryology and the reality of abortion. They're gonna just label it misinformation. And um I don't know if they can get it to a point of where it was like with limiting stuff with COVID. Um but I don't know. I think they're trying to open that door as you see people going after pregnancy crisis centers saying that they spread misinformation. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you guys see it by now, but at some point in time, especially if I repost this clip of this video, there will be like a warning from or some kind of disclaimer about abortion at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't think they do that on Facebook yet, but on TikTok it's like that, and it is like that on YouTube. If you talk about abortion, they'll have information. They'll take you to NIH, and they'll just say like abortion is terminating a pregnancy, and they won't get into the nitty gritty of it. So I think that's the route that they're going. But we gotta keep on spreading the truth and fighting through the misinformation. So anyway, that's the show. Last thing I want to point out is that I am aware, obviously, of the beef with Steven Crowder and the Daily Wire. And I was so upset that all this was happening like while I was in like DC. But it's actually probably good because I watched a ton of content to get a good perspective and from both sides, and I'm going to make an entire video about it. I didn't want to stream and talk about it because I have all these clips I want to show and make it, I would like to make it as concise as possible because it's probably gonna be long. And I only want to do like one video. That's the plan. I don't know how much more will evolve. I let some thoughts out on my Facebook, and Twitter. So I don't think either one are particularly right in this situation. I think when I post a video, I'm not going to have any offers from a Mug Club or Daily Wire. But I think it'll be fair. I do have an opinion. I would say I think people will think I have a bias toward one or the other after seeing it, but I think it'll still be fair and you'll be able to get good information from it all. So I will record that as soon as I get off live from you guys, and then I'll try to post it tomorrow. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of clips in it to kind of get the points across. But I've watched Crowder's video and Jeremy's whole hour-long response, and then Crowder's video. I've watched commentary from Lauren Chin, and is it Chan or Lauren from The Blaze? I've watched Ben Reply Again and Walsh and Brett Cooper and Mark Dice, and I watched the Timcast with Candace Owens and Ben and Candace Owens and the one last night from Steven. So I didn't want to shoot anything until I saw Steven's, which I thought there was interesting tidbits, but it was kind of frustrating because to me it felt like they dodged some important stuff. And I guess Tim's not the press kind of guy, but I definitely would have pressed on some different things to get a clear picture. And I definitely felt like he sidestepped some stuff. So if everyone wants to go watch this stuff, you're more than welcome to do that. I just personally, if I wasn't a commentator and I knew that they didn't get through all the stuff that I kind of wanted them to get through, I wish someone would have saved me the trouble. And just like read about it and watch some highlights or something. But I have seen a lot of content surrounding this and hearing different people's perspectives, Megyn Kelly, etc. So Daily Wire's like, this is how the industry does it. A lot of people are like, that is absolutely not true. But as far as Steven's like purity test, as far as like big tech and his allegations toward Daily Wire, are they like an arm of big tech? I don't really feel that I don't like their contract. Or it wasn't a contract. I didn't like their term sheet. And that was something that I didn't realize kind of how bad it was until I started getting some more perspective on it. So I did not like the term sheet, but I don't like Stephen's conduct. So and I feel like Daily Wire just kind of let you know from jump that they were jerks with their contract offers. Even in Jeremy's response, he's like, "We don't just give people jobs." He was like, "We can't. We need every dime, every." I'm paraphrasing, but it was just like they kind of let you know that they are very shrewd businessmen. And anyway, I will record that, and I think I'll probably stream it as a premiere. Hopefully it does not take me forever to edit it and I can get out tomorrow. But I just want to let you guys know that I was going to cover it. I am going to cover it. I just didn't want to do it live. So hope you guys enjoyed the content today. Make sure that you go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website. Gosh, I can't believe I forgot to mention this at the height of the show. But my book is available for pre-order. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion. So it's available on Kindle and Barnes and Noble as far as the ebooks. So you can't pre-order the physical copies yet, but if you would like to pre-order an ebook, you can do that. So if you go to blacktnews.com and hit books, it'll, there's a links. Actually, if you go right to blacktnews.com, it's like the cover page right now. So you can go right to a link and pre-order it. So I very much appreciate it if you did that. It is truly a labor of love. So I'll be very excited when it's out, but go ahead and get that. So thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.